Letter 65 by Charles Lamb. P.M. August 24, 1800. Dear Manning, I am going to ask a favour of you, and am at a loss how to do it in the most delicate manner. For this purpose I have been looking into Pliny's letters, who is noted to have had the best grace in begging of all the ancients. I read him in the elegant translation of Mr. Melmoth, but not finding any case there exactly similar with mine, I am constrained to beg in my own barbarian way. To come to the point then, and hasten into the middle of things, have you a copy of your algebra to give away? I do not ask it for myself. I have too much reverence for the black arts ever to approach thy circle, illustrious Trismegist, but that worthy man and excellent poet George Dyer made me a visit yesternight, on purpose to borrow one, supposing, rationally enough I must say, that you had made me a present of one before this, the omission of which I take to have proceeded only from negligence, but it is a fault. I could lend him no assistance. You must know he is just now diverted from the pursuit of belles-lettres by a paradox, which he has heard his friend, that learned mathematician, maintain, that the negative quantities of mathematicians were merry nugi, things scarcely in rerum natura, and smacking too much of mystery for gentlemen of Mr. Friend's clear Unitarian capacity. However, the dispute once set a-going has seized violently on George's pericranic, and it is necessary for his health that he should speedily come to a resolution of his doubts. He goes about teasing his friends with his new mathematics. He even frantically talks of purchasing Manning's algebra, which shows him far gone, for, to my knowledge, he has not been master of 7 shillings a good time. George's pockets and sprains are two things in nature which do not abhor a vacuum. Now if you could step in this trembling suspense of his reason, and he should find on Saturday morning, lying for him at the Porter's Lodge, Clifford's Inn, his safest address, Manning's algebra, with a neat manuscriptum in the blank leaf, running thus from the author, it might save his wits and restore the unhappy author to those studies of poetry and criticism, which are at present suspended, to the infinite regret of the whole literary world. N.B. Dirty books, backs, smeared leaves and dog's ears will be rather a recommendation than otherwise. N.B. He must have the book as soon as possible, or nothing can withhold him from madly purchasing the book on tick. Then shall we see him sweetly restored to the chair of Longinus, to dictate in smooth and modest phrase the laws of verse, to prove that Theocritus first introduced the pastoral, and Virgil and Pope brought it to its perfection, that Gray and Mason, who always hunt in couples in George's brain, have shown a great deal of poetical fire in their lyric poetry, that Aristotle's rules are not to be servilely followed, which George has shown to have imposed great shackles upon modern genius. His poems, I find, are to consist of 2 vols, reasonable octavo, and a third book will exclusively contain criticisms, in which he asserts he has gone pretty deeply into the laws of blank verse and rhyme, epic poetry, dramatic and pastoral ditto, all which is to come out before Christmas. But above all he has touched most deeply upon the drama, comparing the English with the modern German stage, their merits and defects. Apprehending that his studies, not to mention his turn, which I take to be chiefly towards the lyrical poetry, hardly qualified him for these disquisitions, I modestly inquired what plays he had read. I found by George's reply that he had read Shakespeare, but that was a good while since. He calls him a great but irregular genius, which I think to be an original and just remark. Beaumont and Fletcher, Massinger, Ben Jonson, Shirley, Marlowe, Ford, and the worthies of Dardsley's collection, he confessed he had read none of them, but professed his intention of looking through them all, so as to be able to touch upon them in his book. So Shakespeare, Otway, and I believe Rowe, to whom he was naturally directed by Jonson's Lives, and these not read lately, are to stand him instead of a general knowledge of the subject. God bless his dear absurd head. By the by, did I not write you a letter with something about an invitation in it? But let that pass, I suppose it is not agreeable. N.B. It would not be amiss if you were to accompany your present with a dissertation on negative quantities. Mr. Melmoth, a translation of the letters of Pliny the Younger was made by William Melmoth in 1746. Trismegistus, thrice greatest, was the term applied to Hermes, the Egyptian philosopher. Manning had written an introduction to arithmetic and algebra, 1796-1798. William Friend, 1757-1841, the mathematician and Unitarian, who had been prosecuted in the Vice-Chancellor's Court at Cambridge, for a tract entitled Peace and Union, recommended to the associated bodies of Republicans and Anthropublicans, in which he attacked much of the liturgy of the Church of England. He was found guilty and banished from the University of Cambridge. He had been a friend of Robert Robinson, whose life Dyer wrote, and remained a friend of Dyer to the end of his life. Coleridge had been among the undergraduates who supported Friend at his trial. Brain. In a later letter, Lamb uses Judge Park's wig, when his head is in it, as a simile for emptiness.